Hello everyone, I have a new guide for you regarding Warhammer Online. One of the pieces of feedback that I've gotten lately about my recent guide was that there is still some misunderstandings on how gearing works in Warhammer Online. A lot of people are having trouble because when they get into PvP, at first, the RVR is pretty easy, mostly because they're very bolstered despite not having any real gear. So usually around level 5 to 8, you'll be doing very exceptional damage despite not having any real gear. However, a lot of people are unsure of what to do once their bolstering starts kind of wearing off. So that's what I'm going to kind of cover today. And I'm also going to cover what gear you can get after Tier 1, but also how to get gear during Tier 1. And that way you understand how the gear actually works and how it interacts with bolster. This will be a series of guides I'm going to be doing on Warhammer Online. I'm also going to be including a series for add-ons that I think are useful, as well as guides for tanks, guides for healers, guides for tiers 2 through 4, so don't worry, more guides are coming. And one last thing before we get started, I normally wait till the end of the video to do this because I don't like being that kind of person, but I'm almost at 1,000 subs and I would really appreciate it if you guys could help me out and get me there if you're not subbed already. If you are subbed, I really appreciate you. Maybe ask your friends or family. Alright, I'm done begging. I'm just trying to get to 1,000 because once I get to 1,000, I get monetized fully and then I can spend even more time making videos for you guys. Alright, now onto the guide. Let's start with Tier 1 because that's where you guys are all going to be starting, obviously, if you're a new player. And you might even still be in Tier 1 if you started recently, depending on how your leveling goes for you. So, in Tier 1, what you're going to probably notice is around level 5 when you normally join RVR. You can join it as early as level 1, but most people are going to join it around level 5. You're going to quickly notice that in RVR, you do a lot of damage at level 5, even though you probably have about 0 gear. So, why is it that when you hit maybe around level 8-ish, your damage feels like it starts falling off? Well, this is because when you first join, your bolster is extremely powerful. But as you get closer to level 16, that bolster starts to fall off. So when the bolster starts falling off, you start feeling a bit weaker. But there is a way to counter this and actually deal with it. So what you're going to want is gear. Gear basically adds to the bolster for you, keeping you at the level you want to be, if not even a little bit higher than you were when you started at level 5. So how does that actually work and where do you get the gear? So every time you go into RVR with any form of gear, it's going to take a look at your gear, see how close it is to your level, and then it's going to add additional stats from your gear to your bolster, allowing your character to essentially have even more stats from your gear than you normally would. However, if you don't have the gear, or you don't have gear that's level appropriate, you're not going to get very powerful stats from them. So you're going to need to always keep up with your gear and make sure that you're having level appropriate gear on. Now, if you watched my previous video guide, you probably know you're going to need to use your war crest to get an early tier set. However, there is more to that than just getting that tier set. If you just get your tier set, yes, you're going to do a lot better, but that's not going to be enough because you're going to have multiple empty gear slots. You're going to need jewelry, you're going to need a helm piece, you're going to need shoulders, gloves. You're going to need quite a few pieces of gear to actually completely outfit your character, because a tier 1 set only offers 4 pieces: weapons, chest piece, belt, and shoes. It's the only tier set that's quite like this, but that's because it's the beginning of the game and the game wants you to figure out the other steps for gearing. Now you're probably asking yourself, Java, you told me in the last video I need to focus on PvP, but if I don't go do PvE quests, how am I supposed to get the gear I need? Well, let me show you. First thing first, in the work camp itself, you're going to find 2 other vendors next to your actual tier set vendor. Vendors that sell green gear. Don't underestimate this green gear. They sell jewelry, they sell gloves, they sell quite a few other pieces for gear that you won't have access to through the tier vendors. But also, they'll also sell you gear earlier that you can get than before you can get your tier set because it has a lower level requirement. Don't sleep on this. Even at higher levels, you're going to see these vendors, and these items are actually very useful. Do not forget that bolster is very powerful, and it will blow the stats up on these very high. So make use of them. Don't think just because they're green, they're not good. They are very good, so I recommend using these to help get your character more geared. Now, there are going to be 2 pieces that are going to be a little bit more elusive to you in Tier 1, but I'm going to show you how to get them. The first piece is going to be the shoulders. The shoulders can usually be gotten either through looting enemies in battle, so when people die, like players, there's a chance that gear will drop. But if you don't get it that way, the other way to actually get them is by going to the Orc versus Dwarf area and completing the tier there, as they offer shoulders that way. Basically, in every RVR area, not only tier 1 but in the further tiers, you're going to see a section in your quest log, as well as at the top right hand corner of the screen, that says RVR tier. Whenever you complete this RVR tier by just PvPing and doing objectives, that's all you have to do in the RVR zones, you're going to get access to basically free gear that the vendors, or the rally masters I should say, are going to offer to you. When you go talk to the rally master, you can pick a piece of gear that you want. Now the Dwarfs versus Greenskins area offers the first piece of shoulders you're probably going to get. The second part of this is the helmet. The helmet can easily be acquired by doing something called layer bosses in tier 1. In all 3 RVR tier 1 areas, there's something called a layer boss. They're a mini boss that you can find in these hidden off layers that basically will guarantee to drop 2 rare pieces of gear. Usually it's going to be a helmet and a weapon. And you can use these to basically get yourself your helmet. The weapons aren't typically better than the tier vendor ones, so they can kind of help you if you don't have that yet, as they are very good for that. But if you already have your tier weapon, then you're going to be trying to get the helmet. Now keep in mind, the layer bosses are difficult in the sense you're going to need at least like 3 or 4 players to kill one. Usually you're going to want a tank and healer, but you can usually get by with just a healer, considering healers are very strong in tier 1. Just make sure you get a group together to help you actually kill the layer bosses, and they will give you the gear. If you're confused on where to find the layer bosses, don't worry. There is a quest inside of every war camp that actually sends you to the layer boss. It's the same quest that tells you need to kill a certain amount of players in the zone. They will also mark on your map the layer boss location. But just in case you aren't sure, I will link below in the description the locations of each layer boss in each zone. Finally, another thing that I recommend, because war crests are so important, is to go into your auto roll section, which you can find where it says parties and warbands at the top, and change all currencies to need automatically. That way you don't have to constantly deal with the pop-ups of every time a war crest drops. You can just have the system auto need it for you, and that way you can just not worry about it. Another way to acquire a lot of war crests is every single week there's going to be 2 ongoing events. There's going to be the rank event, which anyone can participate in. You just have to PvP. The more you PvP, the more unlocks you're going to get, very similar to the rally vendor. It's the NPC in the middle of the work camp and in your base home cities that has the big red circle over its head that has like a golden shield. Talking to this NPC will give you access to a large amount of war crests if you've been PvPing enough for that week. You can get 150 war crests practically for free every week just from playing, and you don't have to play a whole bunch. A few hours PvPing every night will do it for you. You'll also notice there's going to be one for a weekly scenario queue that you can do. So normally there is a scenario quest or battlefield or battleground or however you want to call it. The same rewards vendor will also reward you if you spent enough time in this scenario quest with more war crests. So don't forget that as well if you're queuing for scenarios. Now, what about tiers 2 through 4? What do you do after you hit level 16 and you're kicked out of tier 1? Where do you go to gear then? In your home city, you're going to have multiple vendors that will sell you renowned gear, and they're going to be specific to certain ranks and levels. So you're going to be able to consistently keep up with your PvP gear as you level and grow your character. Keep in mind that these are all going to also have renowned requirements, so therefore you're going to need to keep PvPing either through scenarios or through the tier 4 RVR system, which is combined of tier 2 and 3. Now, each of these gear sets are going to cost a little bit more war crests, but it's also going to cost something else, and you're probably going to be a little confused when you see it. It might say something like Scout's Ward or Soldier's Ward. How do you get these? Well, it basically means that you have to have completed the previous tier set in order to buy this tier set. Therefore, you can't just avoid a tier set, even if you want to, because you're going to need to purchase it in order to actually have access to the next level. So, in order to get, for example, the Scouts tier set, you need to get a 3-piece in tier 1. If you got your 3-piece in tier 1, then you'll be able to buy the next tier set that you're able to acquire around level 17. Another trend you're going to notice is that the renown gear is going to continuously require a higher renown rank than your actual level. Therefore, this is where I have to stress that you need to continuously PvP more than PvE, because your XP should not be exceeding your renown level. Another thing you'll find in these areas is more vendors that sell green gear, such as jewelry, that you might not have in between each levels. That way you're also keeping up with that. Finally, a couple other things you can do to keep yourself geared is you can get talismans. These can either be done through crafting, or you can go to the auction house and spend a few pieces of gold and buy some talismans to put in your gear. This will also further increase your stats in your gear, making you much stronger. So keep in mind, every little stat is very helpful, because once you get that bolster, you're going to blow it up. For example, my Chosen has a 70% armor physical defense, but in bolstered PvP, he actually has over 100%. So that gives you an idea of how powerful bolstering can be. Now here's the flip side. What happens if you spend all your time leveling through PvE exclusively? Let's really talk about that. At level 40, if you try to go PvP and you don't have any renown, that means you won't be able to equip renown gear. And without being able to equip renown gear, you're going to be in a bad position, because the level 40 renown gear requires your renown level to be at least 45 to equip the entire set. What this is going to mean to you is you essentially might be rank 40, but you will not have the power of other rank 40s. Therefore, your character is actually going to be weaker than they would have been if they were even bolstered at a lower level. So this is why PvPing is so important. I understand if you're someone who prefers exploring and doing PvE stuff, but keep in mind this is a PvP first game. So if you don't PvP, then you probably won't be able to PvP very easily once you hit level 40 without basically going through the same process of leveling, but doing so for your renown rank. But you're going to feel extremely weak during the entire time until you get to a proper renown rank where you can get some decent gear. Keep in mind, a lot of people you can fight at level 40 are going to have a renown rank of 80, which is going to offer them the best gear in the game, sovereign gear. That sovereign gear is extremely powerful. So if you're not even halfway there comparable, you're not going to really stand a chance against them at level 40. So you really need to keep up with your renown. You can also help your renown by doing the weeklies. You can get a renown potion that will last for 3 days. That potion will increase the renown that you gain by 25% during that time frame. You can also get these through a few different quest lines in the game that are pretty easy to do. I will also be making a guide on that a little bit later, so you can have a better idea of where to get those potions, but they are very useful in getting your renown rank up. For your recommended renown rank, what I recommend for getting out of tier 1 is at least a renown rank of 20 if possible. It is possible. Just keep in mind you really are going to probably need some renown potions to do it. The last thing is, for getting to level 40, your renown rank is recommended to get around level 45 renown. That should get you your first tier set at level 40 as soon as you get there, as long as you have the required war crest to purchase it. Now at this point you might be asking yourself, what point does PvE even serve in this game? Well, there are some times where PvE might actually be useful to you. For example, at level 15, every faction will have access to a specific dungeon in their city that will essentially give them a free gear set, a full tier set at level 15. That will make them pretty powerful, and they can even skip getting the level 17 set if they don't want to get it from PvP, because it'll still give them the required token in order to purchase the next set around level 29. That set is known as the Keeper set. For the Destro side, you can get it from the Saculum dungeons, and for Altorf or Order side, you get them from the Altorf sewers. Another time you might want to do some PvE is you're going to want to maybe go at around level 21-ish and do a public quest that's hard in the tier 2 zones, because this particular public quest will give you something called the Mayhem set, which is another set that can hold you over until you get to around rank 29, since there is kind of a long gear gap between rank 17 and rank 29. You'll need a group for this, or you'll need to at least have a level 40 player who can help you get through it. If you're in a guild, a lot of guilds will be willing to do it. You just need to talk to them about it beforehand to get that worked out when they can come help you with it. But basically, I recommend going to this particular zone for Destro. That zone is going to be Safiri, and right outside the work camp, you'll find a hard public quest called Recompense. Doing this quest is quite easy with a small little party, and once you guys knock that out, you'll very easily get your mayhem set in a few runs of it. You probably get in a couple hours, and if you have a little 40 with you who's opting out of the bags, you might even get it faster than that, maybe even an hour, and that'll get you a nice gear set between levels 17 and 29. Another time you might be doing PvE is around level 40. You might want to run the dungeon Gunbad to get your red eye set. This set's quite powerful at that level and can help you kind of match up with other players while you're still trying to get enough renown to buy the better gear. But yes, PvE is going to be very limited in this game unless you just really want to do it. Like I said, there are times that you might go out and do quests, but you really need to focus on your renown. It's more important than leveling right now, so get your renown up. It's going to help you a lot in the future. Finally, at level 16, you can get your first mount from the main city. It's going to cost you 10 gold. Not very expensive, and that will give you a good 50% speed boost. And then at level 38 you can get your second mount. This does cost 100 gold, but you should have that amount of money by the time you hit level 38 anyways. And that's it. That's my main guide on getting geared in Warhammer Online. It's pretty straightforward considering a lot of it just comes from vendors, but you might not even know where they are. So I did make sure to post more information on that in the description within this video as well, in case you're still having trouble locating them. I don't play order sites, so I don't know where they exactly are, but I posted a location that they are supposed to be at. Ultimately, gearing is going to be mostly based on where your PvP rank is and getting enough war crests to actually afford the gear. I haven't had any issues having enough war crests whenever I hit a certain level or a certain renown rank to actually purchase these items. The gearing system is quite well done in the fact that it's paced well, so you shouldn't have a whole lot of problem getting the gear that you need as long as you're focusing on getting as many war crests as possible and you're PvPing as much as possible. I'll also leave you with the fact that I pretty much stream every day now, and I stream a lot of Warhammer Online. It's probably the primary thing I stream right now since everyone likes watching it. So if you want to come into my stream, feel free to ask any questions you want about the game. I don't have a problem answering them. So come into my streams, ask questions. I'll do what I can to help you and answer them. If I don't know the answer, I'll find someone who does or find the answer for you. I don't know all the answers. I'm still, a bit of a newer player myself. I've been doing this for a few months. But it doesn't mean that I'm not willing to find the information for you guys, because I'm pretty good at finding it. With that being said, this is the gearing guide to Warhammer Online. Hope it helped you. Have a good rest of your day, and if you have questions, post them in the comments, or you can just tell me if the guide helped you or not. Take care, and bye-bye.